Farm Journal Legacy Project presents Leave a Legacy. And now, your host, Kevin Spafford.
Welcome to Leave a Legacy. In Succession, we don't focus on differences. We prefer to highlight common interests. That said, one of your family's common goals may be to grow the operation by integrating another business unit. In a few moments, we'll talk with Gary Madison of the Farm Credit Council. If you consider establishing a retail outlet, diversifying into a processing facility, or investing in a new venture, you won't want to miss this interview. But first, Clinton Griffiths has an update on the progress of the Farm Journal Legacy Project.
Farm Journal's Legacy Project has spent the last 3 years starting the conversation.
I don't have any sons to pick up where I'm leaving off, and that's kind of not, but somebody will pick it up.
My kids are too young yet, so I have no idea which direction we're going to go.
In fact, recently, the USDA's Economic Research Service put generational transition in its top 3 hottest topics for the ag industry. The average age of the American farmer continues to climb. It's now at 60. Those farmers 65 and older, they make up a third of all principal owners. And only 1% of established farmers are under the age of 35.
When things are going good and you have your health and, no point in quitting immediately.
We're at a critical juncture that we have to make sure that that happens in a way that preserves the family legacies, preserves the wealth that those families have built up over the generation, and keeps us producing the food and fuel that we know that we produce for all of our nation and the world.
To do that, the legacy must live on. Education about succession planning will continue on television this year with host Kevin Spafford. There are also several new workshops and events being planned. So far, those have been Introduction 101 classes. This year, it's 201.
They allow the farmers to go drill a little bit deeper with their families once they've got the process started. It gives them more tools to take it forward and be able to really implement some things on their own farm.
And don't forget the resources available online at farmjournallegacyproject.com. There's also a new online community called eLegacy Connect. It has tools, step-by-step action plans, and advisors to help you all along the way.
The same for every family, it's not the same for every farm. And ultimately, we'd like to have something that matches each one of those family styles.
Regardless of who's pursuing the plan, the experts say the most important thing is getting started.
I don't have any doubt that the land will be farmed. It's what kind of chaos we're going to go through from here to there.
For Leave a Legacy, I'm Clinton Griffiths reporting.
Gary, let's start with a high-level overview. I'm a parent. I want to bring one of my sons or daughters home to the operation. We need to expand. Where do we start? What do we do?
I think one of the first things that a family needs to do is, as a family, assess the skills that they've got, the technical skills, the marketing, the production, or the financial skills. Those 3 basic skill sets are what's necessary, in my mind, to have a successful farm business. And that means that as a family, those skills are going to be spread out among the family members, who has interest in doing what, and to use that as a basis for jumping into, so what have we got? What are the assets we've got? What are the, beyond the skills, what are the assets? What are the things? And among those assets, farmers tend to leave out the idea of the marketplace as an asset that they have. How close are they to a population area? Certainly may be able to influence whether they go into an agritourism sort of business, or even something that's much more a perishable sort of business, like a fresh fruits or vegetables, as an adjunct to the farm business that they're looking at now. I think farmers tend to think in incremental change as they talk about, as a family, as they talk about what they might want to do. It's more like, we can get that extra 40 or, another quarter section.
Same thing what we're doing now, right?
Yeah.
So okay.
But thinking in terms of instead of incremental change, when that young person comes back to the farm from college, thinking in terms of transformational change is helpful, sort of a blue sky moment. Well, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when the young man or woman comes back to the farm? Because they're bringing a different worldview with them. They're bringing a different perception of the future and the future markets that they may be able to tap, different marketing channels even, using the internet. And it's helpful to the farm family to think in terms of a bigger picture, blue sky, open-ended sort of discussion about what they might want to apply their talents and their assets to.
So it feels like we're just talking about anything is available to us. You said do an assessment, maybe skills, abilities, resources. I call them character traits, so things out there. And then what can we create based on, you said the market or maybe consumer demand?
Yeah, it's frequently left out. Farmers are do-it-yourselfers, right? So you want to be able to do the welding shop or the trucking business or the other incremental changes that might be easy to perceive from the current state of the farm business. But it's thinking in terms of who you're going to sell something to that gets you thinking in a very different way about what the possibilities are, gets you to stretch the ideas a little bit further.
Now you make this sound like we don't often change on the farm, but actually in a conversation you talked about how much change there really has been on the farm through most families' history.
Yeah, if you think about the agriculture that's being done on anybody's farm today, what that generation coming back to the farm has only been around for 10 years really. Their parents' generation maybe is in a 20 or 30-year span of their career, and grandfather, grandmother, family history doesn't reach back much more than 50 or 60 years as far as the type of business. But in that time, Dad is not doing what grandfather did on the farm. It's a totally different business. Yeah, it may still be corn, but that corn is now in the couple hundred bushel range rather than 30 or 40. And the equipment is different, and the GPS is different, and the size and scope and the necessary scope of the business to assure profitability is different. It just happens to be the same land.
Thank you. Later, we'll ask Gary to share some specific examples of operations that have expanded to make room for the next generation. When we come back, you'll learn how a young Texas couple dives into a new wave of agriculture to keep the family legacy afloat.
Pioneer Hybrid proudly continues its legacy of supporting America's farm families by sponsoring the Farm Journal Legacy Project.
It's easy to use. Your planting windows are so small in the spring. We're able to put it in the planter and plant out the field. We don't have to make sure the planter's empty to make sure we don't have any more refuge corn in the planter. Our corn is looking really good. That's a tough thing to say in a year like this. It's a family-run business. I've been farming all my life, been here. We were born and raised here. I'm Nels Kobush from Mobassa, Minnesota.
More often than not, the best solutions are the simple ones. When it comes to corn refuge, simple is better. Simple is here. DuPont Pioneer revolutionized simple with the broadest lineup of refuge management products. Better choices. Make it simple. Refuge Simplified by DuPont Pioneer.
At DuPont Pioneer, we're with you every step of the way. Our accelerated yield technology system combines agronomic and defensive traits with elite genetics. Planted on more acres than any other brand, Pioneer delivers total soybean performance.
Simply Better Forage. Advanced agronomic and nutritional expertise. More efficient rations through industry-leading corn silage hybrids, alfalfa varieties, and inoculants. It's what you need to get more from your fields, and ultimately, more from your cows. That's Simply Better Forage. Only from DuPont Pioneer.
It's never too soon to start planning your legacy, even if it means adding to your operation with a splash of aquaculture. Tyne Morgan introduces us to one Texas family whose ability to navigate uncharted waters is helping them become the #2 catfish producer in the Lone Star State.
Cattle and row crops have always been a staple in South Texas. One young family is helping change that with a new wave of production agriculture.
We took out our cows next to the house and sold them off and put catfish ponds in their place. And here we are 12 years later with 45 ponds, 360 acres of water, and hopefully it's going to keep going.
The Bowers grow more than just catfish. Row crops are also still in their mix. Diversifying and venturing out into uncharted waters has been a risk this family was willing to take.
I say manage risk, but you can't really minimize risk because it's about the riskiest thing I've ever done. I've done a lot of things, but it's far riskier than putting seed in the ground for crops.
Unlike row crops, Bowers says crop insurance for catfish isn't an option. Without a safety net in place, the risks in the water are big.
With catfish in the middle of summer in August, if we lose power for a couple of hours, we have the potential to lose everything we have on the farm.
With any risk, there are rewards, but they go through it all as a family.
I think that's key in our operation, is that it is a family operation, and not just between Daryl and myself and our sons, but also with Daryl and his brother and his dad and mom.
To stay afloat, the Bowers are constantly trying to grow and be successful. Mother Nature hasn't made it any easier. Starting with the drought of 2008, followed by several more dry years, production was down.
There was a big shortage, I believe, in 2011, and plants couldn't get their hands on fish, so they were willing to pay whatever they could to get some fish because they could sell it for whatever they wanted to.
Wholesalers then turned to other types of fish they could purchase at half the price. This also meant looking to other countries. As demand fell, so did catfish prices. Add to that record feed cost in 2012, and things got tight.
That was offset. We kind of got lucky. We booked our feed early in late 2011 for 2012, and that got us through the year. If we had to buy spot price feed through the year of 2012, I don't know if we'd still be here. I think we fed somewhere between 7 and 7.5 million pounds of feed this last year, and maybe looking somewhere between 7.5 and 8 going into 2013.
As more feed is required this year, the road doesn't look any easier in 2013. It's these lessons he's learning now in hopes to build a legacy for more than just his family.
With two grown families, my brother has his wife and 3 girls, all under the age of 6, and then me and my wife, we have 2 boys, a 3-year-old and a 3-month-old. So both of our families are continuing to grow, and we need to, in turn, grow our operation.
Despite the challenges that lie in farming, Bowers is looking into other aquaculture ventures in hopes of harvesting a legacy that lasts for future generations.
It's the backbone of agriculture, and it should be the future of agriculture.
From Victoria, Texas, I'm Tyne Morgan for The Legacy Project.
Thanks, Tyne. Up next, Gary returns to guide us on the steps you should take before you invest in a new agribusiness venture. And later, we're headed to western Kansas to see how innovation and a will to succeed is helping one family build their future.
It's easy to use. Your planting windows are so small in the spring. We're able to put it in the planter and plant out the field. We don't have to make sure the planter's empty to make sure we don't have any more refuge corn in the planter. Our corn is looking really good. That's a tough thing to say in a year like this. It's a family-run business. I've been farming all my life, been here. We were born and raised here. I'm Nels Kobush from Mobassa, Minnesota.
It's all about simplicity, so you don't have to work so hard, you know.
He does all the planting, and what he always complained about it with this refuge, it was so much work all the time.
I don't like planting a separate refuge.
It was my perfect opportunity to buy the right seed, so I didn't have to listen to him complain no more.
Anything simple, that's what I like. I'm Terry Erickson.
I'm Ed Erickson Jr., and we're from Milner, North Dakota.
It's so much easier, and it's having a good time while you're planting.
At DuPont Pioneer, we're with you every step of the way. Our accelerated yield technology system combines agronomic and defensive traits with elite genetics. Planted on more acres than any other brand, Pioneer delivers total soybean performance.
It's easy to use. Your planting windows are so small in the spring. We're able to put it in the planter and plant out the field. We don't have to make sure the planter's empty to make sure we don't have any more refuge corn in the planter. Our corn is looking really good. that's a tough thing to say in a year like this. It's a family-run business. I've been farming all my life, been here. We were born and raised here. I'm Nels Kobush from Mobassa, Minnesota.
We're back with Gary Madison of the Farm Credit Council. Gary, I want to go into a little more detail. We talked about maybe some overview of integrating a business. Now let's go into, can you give us some examples of folks that have actually integrated a business, how it's worked out, maybe some details?
I think an instructive example is one where we're taking conventional agriculture and mixing it in with something a little bit different, and brings to mind the story of a family here in the Midwest. It was a corn, soybean, hog operation. The second son wanted to come back to the farm after being at college, and there wasn't enough net profit for he and his new bride to be able to join the operation. So the family decided to let them use 5 acres that was closest to town of their 7,500 acre operation and be able to try out some of that retail greenhouse sort of stuff, selling spring bedding plants. And over the course of the next several years, they expanded that business to include much more retail contact. So they started actually selling some of the hogs. Instead of selling them wholesale, they started selling some of those retail direct to the customers close to town. And in those lean years of the hog business, that corner of that big 7,500 acre operation actually produced 90% of the net profit of the farm, because that retail-based operation continued to access a good and profitable marketplace, while the wholesale hog business was suffering by losing $40 a head every hog that went out the wholesale chain. So it was the same essential production of material, using the same assets, but selling it through a different marketing channel. And one of the outstanding features besides that was they were able to build a relationship with the folks in town in such a way as to no longer be that factory farm. Rather, they became a source of that local pork.
So what was the key to that? Was it the young person returning? Was it the personalities of the people involved? Because for a farmer to go from what they like to do, which is production agriculture, to be more of a retailer, a face of the farmer, that's a huge change. Can you?
It is a huge change. There are a lot of farmers that like the idea of being a producer and putting their head down and sort of pushing hard against, I'm going to grow more and better and be able to fulfill their sense of mission of producing food. And it takes a special kind of person to step into that sort of family business and say, you know, we can sell this in a different way and perhaps access a marketplace that has more profit available in it. It takes a lot of attention. It takes a different kind of mindset to think about what's that customer going to want, how to anticipate a market. And from a lender point of view, the biggest change between a commodity production basis and a retail market sort of farm business is the idea that you're no longer lending against bushels per acre and a capacity of production, but you're lending against a marketing plan, which is vaporware. It doesn't really exist. It's a plan of how we're going to earn money by putting some kind of product through a marketing chain, rather than we're going to be selling this same specific thing for the next 10 years.
And it's still a family operation.
Absolutely. And it's using, you know, it's interesting, it uses the talents that are there on the farm differently. If you take half a dozen people, let's say that's how many are involved in this kind of family operation, there's going to be a wide variety of talents, even though most of them are related. There's still going to be different personalities and different senses of mission. And that really is what drives the enthusiasm for people to be able to pick up in a farm situation like this and convince the rest of the family, the rest of their partners, let's try a slightly different direction. Incrementally, we can move into it easily, but let's try something different.
Thank you very much, Gary. Still to come, we'll meet a family that designed their own way to work together from Pennsylvania to Kansas. The McCartys are putting down roots and building a legacy to last. Their story is next.
It's easy to use. Your planting windows are so small in the spring. We're able to put it in the planter and plant out the field. We don't have to make sure the planter's empty to make sure we don't have any more refuge corn in the planter. Our corn is looking really good. That's a tough thing to say in a year like this. It's a family-run business. I've been farming all my life, been here. We were born and raised here. I'm Nels Kobush from Wabassin, Minnesota.
It's all about simplicity, so you don't have to work so hard, you know.
He does all the planting, and what he always complained about it with this refuge, it was so much work all the time.
I don't like planting a separate refuge.
It was my perfect opportunity to buy the right seed, so I didn't have to listen to him complain no more.
Anything simple, that's what I like. I'm Terry Erickson.
I'm Ed Erickson Jr., and we're from Milner, North Dakota.
It's so much easier, and it's having a good time while you're planting.
At DuPont Pioneer, we're with you every step of the way. Our accelerated yield technology system combines agronomic and defensive traits with elite genetics. Planted on more acres than any other brand, Pioneer delivers total soybean performance.
It's easy to use. Your planting windows are so small in the spring. We're able to put it in the planter and plant out the field. We don't have to make sure the planter's empty to make sure we don't have any more refuge corn in the planter. Our corn is looking really good. That's a tough thing to say in a year like this. It's a family-run business. I've been farming all my life, been here. We were born and raised here. I'm Nels Kobush from Wabassin, Minnesota.
The McCarty family in northwest Kansas is a big dairy operation. They run 7,200 cows, and they are the sole supplier of raw milk to the Dannon yogurt plant in Texas. These forward thinkers have found a way to keep doing what they love while making a positive impact in the surrounding schools and communities. Clinton Griffiths tells us how the McCarty legacy also supports the town's legacy.
In Rexford, Kansas, nestled into the far western corner of the state, folks have a lot to cheer for.
I think it's fantastic. A few years ago, we were one of the few districts that were growing.
Growth, an uncommon phenomenon in these isolated Kansas communities. Yet in the last few years, enrollment in the Golden Plains School District is up by about 30 students. A shot of security for this district, all because of the vision of one relatively new and booming business. This is McCarty Family Farms. They milk 7,200 cows across 3 sites in northwest Kansas, tend to roughly 5,000 additional head of dry cows, Springer heifers, and Hutch calves, farm 1,300 acres, and employ more than 100 people.
It's big to me. Might not be big to some people, but it's big to me. So. And I know it's big to my brothers.
The family farm includes 4 brothers, their father Tom and mother Judy, and believe it or not, all of this is a little more than a decade old.
We were in an area in the state of Pennsylvania that's really not conducive to dairy farming. We faced the challenge of either diversifying, not going into agriculture, or relocating, and we chose the latter of relocating.
After several years of looking, the family uprooted its Century Farm, and these 4th and 5th generation Pennsylvania dairymen settled in the Colby, Kansas area.
And we have the basic ingredients here that would allow them to basically go as far as they choose to go.
It's that drive, that willingness to innovate and recreate themselves and their business that led to another major milestone in 2012. The McCartys are now the sole supplier to milk for the Dannon yogurt plant in Dallas, Texas.
We're the only processor of this type in the U.S. We actually, there's other farms that process some of their product, but the exact process that we do here at McCarty Family Farms, we're the only plant in the U.S.
For us, it's taken the volatility out of the markets. And it's allowed us to transform our business instead of a day-to-day or month-to-month thinking and thought process to a long-term, year, 5-year, 10-year process.
which is why soon Rexford will break ground on a nearly $2 million housing project to help support the need for more workers at the dairy.
We have an aging housing population in northwest Kansas, so it's very exciting to be able to build something new and have a nice community for our future employees to live in.
That connection is just so rewarding.
From the countryside of Pennsylvania, these Keystone State natives now call Kansas home.
Colby is the oasis on the plains. We're the oasis in Rexford.
At DuPont Pioneer, we're with you every step of the way. Our accelerated yield technology system combines agronomic and defensive traits with elite genetics. Planted on more acres than any other brand, Pioneer delivers total soybean performance.
Simply better forage. Advanced agronomic and nutritional expertise. More efficient rations through industry-leading corn silage hybrids, alfalfa varieties, and inoculants. It's what you need to get more from your fields, and ultimately, more from your cows. That's simply better forage. Only from DuPont Pioneer.
It's easy to use. Your planting windows are so small in the spring. We're able to put it in the planter and plant out the field. We don't have to make sure the planter's empty to make sure we don't have any more refuge corn in the planter. Our corn is looking really good. That's a tough thing to say in a year like this. It's a family-run business. I've been farming all my life, been here. We were born and raised here. I'm Nell Skobush from Wabassin, Minnesota.
More often than not, the best solutions are the simple ones. When it comes to corn refuge, simple is better. Simple is here. DuPont Pioneer revolutionized simple with the broadest lineup of refuge management products. Better choices. Make it simple. Refuge Simplified by DuPont Pioneer.
Closed captioning is brought to you by Pioneer Hybrid, helping you get the right product on the right acre. Science with service, delivering success.
As the season progresses, we'll continue to highlight families who are planning success. More importantly, we're going to bring you experts like Gary who are poised and ready to help you through the succession planning process. Transition will happen. How, when, and under what conditions is up to you. A wise man recently said, you don't have to plan for succession, but you may have to compete with those farm families who do. Until next time, I'm Kevin Spafford, helping you to leave a legacy.